Hi, I'm Dr. Karen Gephardt, and I'm faculty member in the Department of Economics. I'm involved with this APLU grant to integrate active learning and adaptive courseware into principles of microeconomics, fall 2016 and spring 2017. In Principles of Microeconomics, I'm teaching two different sections this spring. One section that is our traditional format where there's two lecture sessions, large sessions, 270 students in that class, and then students attend a smaller recitation section each week. The other section that I'm teaching is supported by learning assistants. So in that class, I meet with my students twice a week for a 75-minute period. And adaptive courseware and active learning has impacted both of these classes in a very positive way. Integration of adaptive courseware into the classroom has really meant that I'm able to step up the difficulty and the rigor of my class, both in the class as well as on quizzes and other assessments. When students have completed their Learn Smart assignment, which is from McGraw-Hill, the adaptive courseware assignment, I know that they have demonstrated mastery on those core concepts, that they'll come into class ready and able to learn and apply that knowledge to more difficult concepts, to news analyses, to quantitative assignments, to really difficult concepts. After a student has completed that Learn Smart assignment, I know that they've demonstrated mastery on those core concepts. I am then able to have more difficult questions in quizzes. I don't have to waste time in questions on the define and the apply. Instead, I can have very difficult, interesting questions on the quiz. So this adaptive courseware has increased the overall rigor of my class. To talk a little bit about how active learning has impacted me both in and outside the classroom, with the active learning, let me tell you that the class is alive now. I was very comfortable lecturing and being a good lecturer, but now integrating these active learning techniques, group work, think, pair, share, clickers, the class is alive. They're talking with one another, and it's really satisfying and exciting seeing students take control of their own learning process. With the integration of active learning, I'm spending less time lecturing, and instead I'm helping the students become better learners and develop the learning themselves. With the integration of active learning, my preparation outside of the classroom is a lot different. It's really forced me to be a creative teacher. I can't just lecture anymore. I actually have to create engaging activities for students to learn. But one really great thing is that I have received a ton of support from Tilt and the instructional designers over at Tilt. They have fantastic knowledge on types of assignments, how to integrate those active learning into your classroom, how to engage those students, and that resource was and has been incredible. I had concerns in some areas, but not in others. Integrating the adaptive learning courseware into my class was not scary at all. It was very easy. I use Learn Smart, which is a publisher-provided courseware that is tied to the textbook I use in class. It's easy to assign. It's easy for students to use. I know what types of questions are being asked in Learn Smart, so that part wasn't scary at all. That was easy. I did have to change my quizzes around a little bit to remove some of those easy definitional questions and add in some more difficult applied questions. But overall, time-wise, it wasn't too difficult, wasn't too challenging, wasn't too scary. But let me tell you that integrating the active learning into class was a really scary thing for me because I had never done active learning to the extent that I'm doing active learning this semester. The two main areas where I was most scared is, first off, could I get students engaged in their groups and talking with one another, and will that active learning actually get launched? And then my second concern was, after they are talking with one another and engaging with one another, learning from one another, could I get them back under control to bring it back up to me in the front of the classroom? And It's been great. To get students involved with the active learning, I laid it out very first day in class that this classroom is an active learning classroom. They are expected to work in groups, to learn from one another, to actively participate in creating their own knowledge. And students were a little taken aback at first, but then they were game. They were okay, because I explained to them that by being in this active classroom, by taking ownership of their learning process, their student learning outcomes are going to be far superior compared to students who are not in this type of a classroom. So when I was transparent about what I was doing and why I was doing it and what the benefits were for the students, they were really on board. So when I have an activity, they immediately jump into the activity and work with one another, which is great. That second concern that I had was, once if they're active and they're talking with one another, how do they get them back to the front of the classroom? That's been easy too. I go up to the front of the classroom and I just say, okay, let's bring it back to the front of the class. They settle down in maybe 10 or 15 seconds, and I'm able to go on with the lecture, do a wrap-up of the activity. It's great. Students have been really great and really enthusiastic about this process. I've tried very hard to be very enthusiastic and excited about this process, even though I've been very scared and nervous about the process, that it was going to not turn out great. There have been some activities that were not that great, but each lecture is a different opportunity to try different activities. So of course some of them aren't going to work out, so I won't do that type again in the future, or maybe I'll try it in another couple weeks with a different topic and it may work better. It's a learning process, not just for the students but also for myself. One thing that you don't want to underestimate is the amount of time that it'll take for you to redesign your class. To thoughtfully integrate the active learning as well as the adaptive learning into your class, it's going to take time. But any teaching innovation does take time. And as educators who really care about our students, you know, the time is part of it. And as I've gone through week by week, it's getting a lot easier because I'm becoming more competent. The most obvious thing that I've seen is that students are laughing in class and they're talking in class, but talking in a good way. They're talking with one another, they're learning with one another, and they're not just sitting there. It's really a fun classroom environment, and I feel like it's fun, and I think that the students feel like it's a fun place to be as well. The students haven't really reacted to any changes that I've made because it's just class to them. They don't know what it was like before, so they come into class and they just experience class. So although it felt pretty impactful to me, the change was a big change for me. For the students, it's just class. My next steps as an instructor is to take this learning model and see if it can be applied to other courses in the economics program. In particular, I'm really interested in integrating the learning assistants into our upper division theory courses, the intermediate microeconomics and the intermediate macroeconomics, and seeing how student success improves with that model. One really great thing about this process is that integrating adaptive courseware and active learning into my classroom has really been a collaboratory process between myself as well as Tilt and the instructional designers, but also my colleagues who are also integrating adaptive and active learning into the classroom. You know, I know that I can call on Tilt at any time to get help and very targeted help when I need it. I know that I can call on my fellow faculty colleagues who are also part of this grant to get help and ideas and brainstorm about better ways to run our classroom. So it's a great process. You're not alone out there in this project. It's incredibly supportive.